How domesticated have you become? Knowledge dispels fear, and although we now live in an age of unlimited information, we are losing the very wisdom that has always kept us alive and in balance with the natural world. This primal knowledge is timelessly relevant. You'll not only reconnect with the wild, but you'll rekindle a part of yourself that modern life has extinguished. In this video, I'll share my 3-step learning system to allow you to take ownership and teach yourself this timeless knowledge in the way humans have always learned, through the power of story and exploratory play. Together, we'll awaken this ancient wisdom that's within us all. Now, in my previous video, in this series, I introduced you to this book that was given to me when I was 10 years old and it sparked a lifelong obsession with survival. The SCS Survival Handbook by John Lofty Wiseman. Now, in the introduction of this book, there is this pyramid diagram which Wiseman calls the essential pyramid of learning for the survivor. Right at the base of the pyramid, the most important thing is the will to live. So in that video, I discussed what he might mean by this, and I shared some things that help nurture my will to live in this increasingly strange modern life. And I asked folks to do the same, and it sparked some really interesting discussions in the YouTube comments. Now in this video, I want to explore the next step in the survivor's pyramid, knowledge. Mainly how we can teach ourselves wilderness survival in a progressive, safe, and fun way by applying my 3-step learning system and by learning the way humans have always learned, through exploratory play and through the power of story. Now, we humans are storytelling animals, and we're all inspired by a good quest, an adventure that pulls us out of our comfort zones, to take us on a journey to overcome various challenges, to gain knowledge and wisdom, which we can then bring back to the tribe and the community. So as I share my 3-step learning system, I'll also give examples of how I've implemented it on my past adventures. So here on YouTube, there is a limit on how much I can share while still keeping the algorithm happy. So this video and my Survival Flow playlist is really just a taster of what's on my online survival school, Resilient Roots. So at any point you want to take your learning further, then come join me in the tribe over there via the link below. There I have over 100 fundamental lessons. I'm also now doing monthly live calls as a sort of 21st century international way of gathering the tribe round the fire to hear each other's stories and to answer your questions. There on the community page, people are also implementing this 3-step learning system, and it's been great fun all learning from each other. So if you want to join us, it'd be great to have you. So now let's have a look at what Wiseman has to say about knowledge in his essential pyramid of learning for the survivor. Quote, "On top of our foundation of the will to live, we have knowledge. The more we have, the easier it is to survive. Knowledge dispels fear, and hopefully this book will supply what we need to know. But we must take this further. Practice these skills till you master them. Look at the locals and see how they survive. Talk to the people who have endured and learn from their experiences." So it's quite a short quote, but it says a lot. So let's break that down a bit. Knowledge dispels fear. It's natural that we fear the unknown. The more we know, the less we're daunted by it. He talks about learning from this book, but then the importance of practicing these skills. So essentially the importance of moving from theoretical knowledge to experiential knowledge. He then says, learn from the locals. Now, you might be able to do that if you're in the part of the world where the locals actually know how to survive, but certainly here in Scotland, the average person has absolutely no idea. So that's why for the last 7 years, I've had to look back in time to the 17th century to see what was written about the 17th century Highlanders, learn from them, and then do a bit of experimentation to figure out the rest myself. Finally, he says, learning from others. So I know I've learned a lot from reading about past, survival experiences, but you can also learn a lot from other learners. And this is why, as part of my Resilient Roots program, I encourage people to share their review from their adventures so we can all learn from each other. And I've certainly learned a lot from other folks in the community, especially from, climates and environments that I've never been before. So with this in mind, now let's get on to my 3-step learning system so we can rekindle this primal knowledge within us. So step 1, gather the basic kit and principles. Now, kit really doesn't have to be complicated, and in fact, it's better if it's not. Now, I'm going to do a very detailed video on my kit and my principles of my rucksack systems in my next video of Survival Flow when I get to the peak of Wiseman's learning pyramid. But for now, I want to leave you with a little challenge. What I'm going to show you is what's known as Dave Canterbury's 5 C's of survivability. And I want you to look around wherever you are now, whether it's in your room or your house or, I don't know, on public transport, and see if you have these 5 items on you, or see if you can improvise what they do. The first one, cutting tools. Ideally, a good knife, but it doesn't have to be. Just anything that allows you to manipulate the environment. That could be a pointy stone, a piece of sharp metal, a piece of glass, just anything that allows you to cut. Next one, combustion device, something that's going to allow you to light a fire. Humans need fire. It could be a lighter, it could be a ferro rod, whatever it is. Let me know what you've got. Next one, cover elements, something that's going to keep off the weather and keep you warm. That could be a jacket, could be a poncho, a tarp, a plastic bag. I don't know, let me know what you have around you that will give you shelter. Next, a metal container, something that's going to hold water and allow you to boil it and make it safe to drink. Could be a metal cup, metal water bottle, a tin can, a piece of aluminium foil that you could shape into a bowl. What have you got around you? And finally, cordage. Once you have cut things in the environment to the shape that you want, it's handy to be able to tie things back together and to create exactly what you need. This is humans' amazing ability to use tools to manipulate the environment, cut order out of the chaos, and tie it all back together into whatever we want. Step 2, recognize and test the wilderness comfort zones 1 or 2 at a time using the acronym S.C.R.E.E.D. Now we can visualize learning any new skill with 3 concentric circles. In the center, we have the comfort zone. Out of that, we have the learning zone. In the outer circle, we have the panic zone. And according to optimal learning theory, we learn best and we're most engaged when we are 15% outside of our comfort zone. Too much in our comfort zone, we're bored, we're not engaged. Too far out of it, then we're just panicking. And actually, our stress hormone, cortisol, actually inhibits learning new skills. So this 15%, the learning zone, is where we want to find ourselves, really learning any new skill. So looking back at my journey of wilderness living skills, I've recognized 6 wilderness comfort zones that I believe if we just test 1 or 2 at a time, then we can find ourselves in this beautiful flowing learning space. And I represent these 6 wilderness comfort zones with the acronym S.C.R.E.E.D. So this S.C.R.E.E.D acronym stands for specific skills, company, remoteness, environmental conditions, equipment, and duration. And I believe for us to find ourselves in optimal learning, we should only really test 1 or 2 of these comfort zones at a time and really leave harsh environmental conditions and remoteness until later on in your learning journey when you're more experienced. So how is this implemented? Well, if you are a complete beginner, if you've never done any camping or outdoor skills at all, you're not going to go out with no company into a really remote location in terrible weather with historical equipment for a week. Of course you're not going to do that. You're going to keep everything else comfortable and practice the specific skills in a garden, in a park, setting up your tent. That's a beginner example, but really wherever you are in your experience, you can look at this and think about what sort of comfort zones you want to test. Then the next thing is that we apply this to step 3, and this is where it turns into a beautiful learning journey. Step 3, implement and share the dream cycle. So now we have some basic equipment and we've recognized some comfort zones we want to test in our learning journey. Now it's about looking within, seeing what's inspiring us, seeing what is calling us forward to adventure. Then we can implement a circular story-based learning cycle known as the dream cycle, which goes dream, plan, do, review. And this structure is not only a fantastic way to plan and record your own learning journey, it gets even more fun if you share it with other people. And I encourage folks in the Resilient Roots community to use this structure to share their adventures, and we all learn from each other. Now, I think the best way to describe how it works is for me to look in hindsight and review some of my past adventures and show you how I have been testing my comfort zones just very gradually. So I'm always finding myself in this learning zone and it never got too dangerous. So the first story I'll share is from way back at the start of this channel. 2013, I had a dream that I wanted to walk the length of Scotland. Plan. I asked my buddy Richard if he wanted to join. We found some time to do it. And the comfort zones that we were testing was essentially distance and duration, also a bit of remoteness, but everything else, specific skills, equipment, environmental conditions, we were keeping within our comfort zone. We did it, and I've got a big, long, amateurly edited and filmed video about it. I learned so much. It took us 28 days. It was great crack. Review. I had too much kit. I was carrying too much. We were both carrying too much. My big heavy boots were just too big and heavy. It injured my knee, I injured my feet. That was my biggest takeaway from that trip. Now, jump forward. I dreamt that I wanted to go out for a few days and test my skills on a solo trip with way less equipment and only a very small amount of food. Didn't have a camping stove or much food. And at that time, that was a comfort zone for me that I was testing. So I did it. I found a dead deer, I cut his leg off, I ate some shellfish, and generally had a great time. Review. I had an interesting insight from that trip of just being alone for the first time properly out in the wild. It's hard to explain, but it's essentially what sparked the rest of my work. And again, I realized that I could have done with less kit. I didn't need all that stuff. So consecutive videos and journeys after that, I was going with less and less kit. Jump forward a few years, 2018. I had a dream that I wanted to see what it was like traveling and living and surviving out in the Highlands of Scotland with this much more minimalist and simple equipment that the Highlanders had. So I planned it. I spent ages buying my first plaid, making my first shoes from an old leather sofa, and the comfort zones I wanted to test was essentially equipment, i.e. going with much less, more primitive or simple equipment than I was used to. So I did my first Highlander overnight. I did it. I had some very interesting insights. So a strong calling, you could say, a strong calling to adventure, a very strong, meaningful insight that was like, I need to dedicate my life to wherever this is leading me. And again, I reviewed my kit, wasn't perfect. My shoes weren't very authentic. Jump forward a few years. I had a dream. I wanted to take this Highlander equipment and do a long distance hike. I wanted to do a 4-day expedition. I wanted to test the comfort zone of distance and duration and equipment. But because I was testing these comfort zones, I wasn't going to test the comfort zone of company, i.e. doing it solo. So I asked my buddy Finn to join me. So he was my cameraman and also my safety buddy. Did that expedition with much more authentic kit than my first ever Highlander trip. Review wise, I was a bit cold most nights. My plaid, this particular plaid's a bit light. I wish I brought an extra blanket with me or wore a heavier plaid. So jump forward from that, I did a few other Highlander adventures. Again, always building from what I learned before. You can just keep on implementing and sharing this dream cycle, and it gets really fun when you've got other people to join in your adventure. And you just use this as a rough structure and the S.C.R.E.E.D acronym to just always pushing your comfort zone at that fun level, because you never want to push it so far that either it's going to get dangerous or you're just going to scar yourself and put yourself off and you're just like, sack this, I don't want to do this again. So there you go, folks. There's a wee taster on how we can gain this most basic primal knowledge for life and awaken the Highlander within us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video in the Survival Flow playlist. If you want to learn more, come join me on Resilient Roots. But until then, always remain curious. Always follow that inspiration that calls you to adventure. You won't regret it. See you in the woods sometime.